Hey, Adee, welcome to the Feminine Frequency Podcast.
Hi, I'm so
Hi.
excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. Before I share a little bit about how we met and introduce you, I wanted to first ask you a question. And it's the first question that I really like to ask all of my guests. And the question is, how do you play? How do you like to play in your life?
How do I play? That's a really good question. I love to cook. I consider that playing. I particularly love to host dinners, um, host gatherings, or have friends over. And I love to plan a meal from beginning to end and create that's playing to me. It's where I get to be creative. It's where I get to have fun and break the rules a little bit. Yeah, so I think that's the first thing that comes to mind.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, we're looking to bring more play in. I think that's something that we lose as adults very often. But the way that you and I met was actually in a very playful environment. We met at Burning Man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, we met at Burning Man. I met you at the peak of my Burning Man experience for sure. I'll tell a little bit of the story. We met on Friday, which is at near the end of the event. It ended on Sunday. And at that point, I'm exhausted. It's hot. I'm a little bit I had stayed out way too late the night before. And there's a lot of public nudity at Burning Man. And for the listeners, before going to Burning Man, I think 5 people total had seen me naked in my whole life. And so, and a couple of those are in dark rooms where it's just, I was just not, I had this belief in my head that that is just only saved for your intimate partner, and there's something wrong about it. There was just something wrong about being naked. And going to Burning Man, it kind of shatters a lot of your beliefs about that. And I even had worn a sheer shirt a couple nights before that I thought was so scandalous. And Michael was who's my husband, he's you can't even really tell that your shirt is sheer. He's it's not scandalous at all. And it was that was an edge for me for sure. And then Friday morning, a friend of ours comes to our trailer and he's okay, we're going to go to this thing called Dr. Bronner's shower. And it's essentially a shower party where it's 500 people plus all go completely naked into this shower where you get sudsed up and you clean each other, and then there's a dance party happening and everyone is completely naked. And immediately I'm hell no, there is no chance I'm going to this thing. And finally they convinced me. I end up riding our bike over to where we go to this Dr. Bronner shower, and there's a 3-hour lineup of people just lined up waiting to get into this thing. I think it's one of the it's a huge thing at Burning Man to go to Dr. Bronner shower. And we end up going to the line, and it's the perfect excuse for me. I'm oh, I'm first thing in the morning. This is really early in the day. I'm I haven't even eaten yet, let alone I'm in the right state of mind to do something like this. And I'm this is the perfect excuse. There's 3-hour lineup. No chance I'm waiting in a 3-hour line. And all of a sudden, this angel, Amy, bikes over and she's ready to go to Dr. Bronner's shower. And she's oh, it's okay, guys. We don't have to wait in line. I know how to skip the line. And I'm thinking in my head, one, I'm she's so beautiful. I have to follow her everywhere she goes. And then on the other hand, I'm damn, I lost my excuse not to go to Dr. Bronner's shower. So that's how I met Amy. We end up skipping the line. Within the first 10 minutes of meeting you, I was butt naked, dancing in a shower. And I think I people need to understand, I 100x'd the amount of people who saw me naked in the blink of an eye. So it was a very powerful experience for me. It was just it was crazy. It was crazy to leave there being this really isn't that big of a deal. And you were a huge part of making that experience happen for me. And I think we've
Awesome.
connected ever since.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that in time, as we start to let go of some of the the old programming that we have around needing to hide or not being comfortable in our bodies. And I know that you have had quite a journey, with your body, and it can be super liberating. And the reason why we're talking about this is not just specifically to like talk about nudity, but really about freedom, freedom to be yourself, freedom to be comfortable to be yourself, and then also to be able to be the permission for other people to feel free in their bodies and feel free about themselves. So one of the reasons why I really wanted to bring Adee on this show is because she has this beautiful balance of being playful and fun, and also she's a badass CEO.
Mm.
And when I think of Adee, I really think of having it all. And what I mean by that is showing up in all these areas of her life in a way that's super inspiring. So I know that that hasn't always been the case. I know that you've done a lot of internal work and a lot of intentionally taking yourself to those next levels. So if you wouldn't mind starting by sharing a little bit of your story, I would love to hear more about how you got started in nutrition, what your personal journey was to becoming the CEO of an online nutrition company.
Yeah. My journey started when I was 16. Well, I guess it started probably before that, when I was younger than 16, maybe. Like just growing up and realizing that I could comfort myself with food. I have this inkling that my dad tells a story of like me being a baby. And every single time I would cry, my dad would just ask my mom if I had eaten. And it's just like this constant pattern of like, she's crying, she should eat. And then the first thing they would do is like try and get me to eat. And so I don't know if this is true, but I feel like I got this connection like really, really young of like chaos and discomfort equals food, and food helps me cope with my emotions. And some people conquer that relationship later, but I didn't have the experiences to then like overcome that, like I need food to cope. And I ended up 16 years old with a terrible relationship with food. I was almost 200 pounds, and I was just doing like some weird things with food. Almost like in retrospect, I think about it. Like my husband is a recovered heroin addict. And when he talks to me about his addiction to opiates, he was doing a lot of the things that I was doing with food. Like he would go to a friend's house and he would look through their medicine cabinets and look for pills. I would go to a friend's house and I would say I was going to the bathroom, and instead I would like hit up their pantry on the way to the bathroom and like grab a cookie or something. And I feel like that's actually the exact same thing. I was hiding, I was being secretive with food, had a lot of shame around food and my body. And I finally got my mom convinced me to go to a nutritionist. And the moment that I had the accountability and this wasn't like a secret anymore, it just completely changed everything for me. I had someone who was supportive of like finding anything that could possibly help me move in a more positive direction. And I ended up losing 50 pounds, and I've kept it off for the past 14 years and dedicated a lot of my life to helping others do the exact same thing.
Amazing. I think what's so powerful that you just mentioned is that working with someone who actually wanted to help you, that it helped to dissolve the shame
Mhm.
around feeling like it was something that you needed to hide. And oftentimes, shame is what actually keeps habits continuing because you don't want someone to know. And there's an interesting psychology behind shame, which obviously Brene Brown is someone who, studies shame. It's a huge emotion that has actually a really low frequency, has a low energy state. And when there's shame, it's actually hard to be empowered around making new choices. So you saw a nutritionist, you got healthy for yourself, and then you wanted to share it with others. Tell us a little bit more about the process of building the business that you have now.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you bring up Brene, because she's like definitely helped me with some language around that. Like she says, shame can only survive with secrecy, silence, and judgment. So I think for me, like the second the secrecy and the silence and the judgment started to go away, like the shame can't survive anymore. So I love that you bring that up for sure. How the business got started, after like I went to college and I've always been an athlete my whole life. I lived in Toronto, Canada. So we experienced all four seasons, and I got the opportunity to play all different kinds of sports, winter, summer, water, field sports, all different kinds of things. And I've always been really athletic, but honestly, I got too heavy to participate in a lot of my sports when I was 16. I like couldn't be a figure skater anymore because I couldn't jump high enough, or I couldn't get out of the water to slalom ski because I wasn't strong enough to hold onto the rope anymore. And then I started, once I had lost all the weight, I started becoming more athletic again. And I found Olympic weightlifting and CrossFit. And I was really good at Olympic weightlifting, and it's a weight class specific sport. So I started using what I learned with nutrition. And I mean, I've been trying all different kinds of nutrition since I had lost weight, just like different types of things, like what works, what makes me feel good. I became really, really passionate about it. And then I lost some weight to fit into a weight class, but got stronger at the same time. And that was like, in strength sports, you get bigger to get stronger. And so at the time, that was kind of counterintuitive to a lot of people. And so they just asked me how I did that. And most of it was because I was really controlling my nutrition, making sure I was fueled properly for the gym, and able to like monitor the scale at the same time. So a couple people asked me for some help, and then I started definitely in like the weightlifting and CrossFit community. And that is still like primarily where most of our customers come from. And then it's just evolved from there. As people got results, they would tell their friends. And then all of a sudden their mothers were joining the program, and their cousins. And we'd end up with like a couple people in a gym. And then it would be like half the gym would be part of the program. So kind of just evolved over time.
Yeah, I love that your business stemmed from a place of you healing yourself and really doing the research to figure out the nutrition part of it, and then really wanting to help other people with that and sharing your knowledge. And there's one thing that I know for sure, that you are really amazing at structure and strategy and having things planned out. Like, that's really how your mind works. So I'm curious to know, with that structure and strategy, which we call more of like the masculine energy, which is also just like the logical, and we need both the masculine and the feminine. I'm curious to know how you balance out your feminine energy. I know that that's something that you've been working on.
Yeah. I think at the beginning of all of this, I leaned very heavily into like my masculine energy. I feel like, looking back, that was a much more well-developed muscle. I was doing Olympic weightlifting. You could see that as being like a really masculine sport. It's about numbers, about lifting more, about like, even the movements themselves they're not intuitive. It's very systematic, structured programming. You have to be there for a certain amount of time. You have to put in the work. It's like definitely a masculine sport. And then I was seeing success being structured and organized and striving and achieving and being logical. So a lot of the beginning was really, really, don't think I had much of my femininity developed, or I wasn't utilizing it. And the weird thing is, like, I am definitely feminine at my core. So that is like kind of it's like a weird juxtaposition, because I'm definitely feminine at my core, but I was heavily relying on my masculine energy to succeed. And I was being praised for it, and I was being validated for it. And I would end up in business conferences that are 80% men, and being novel. It's like, and that's who I'm learning from. I'm modeling men, and I'm being around them. And that's who I'm learning from, is like male CEOs who built businesses, and I'm kind of modeling their behavior. And then I met my husband, and he is very masculine, and we started learning about polarity. And there were certain aspects of like the way that I would behave that would actually like kind of turn him off. And it wasn't in a way that was like, he's like, don't be successful, don't strive, don't do those things. But there is like this other side of you that can make you even better, or reach this higher level of yourself, which is like my feminine energy. And there's this whole half of me that I'm not accessing that can help me grow. And he helped me see that. And I spent all of 2018, like the entire year, my intention for the whole year was to dedicate 100% of my energy to being more feminine. I have a mentor who told me that I could spend all my time working on the feminine, and because the masculine had been so developed over time, it's just not going to go anywhere. And so I've spoken to women about this before, and I think some women who are in business and do rely a lot on their masculine of like doing and striving, they feel like if I lean into the masculine, it means I have to give, if I lean into the feminine, it means I have to give up a lot of the masculine, or I give up my edge, or I have to be less successful. And I actually think that that's completely the opposite. I've personally experienced very, very different results. So I like focused all of 2018 on doing things that helped me feel more feminine. And that was cooking, that was dancing, that was deep conversations, that was connection, that was intimacy, that was like nurturing people or mentoring people, and less on the doing, striving, organizing. Like sometimes I would just do nothing. I've meditated every day since I made this commitment. So just being and tapping more into like my intuition. And that has, I feel like now I can officially be like, I am both feminine and masculine. And it's really helped at work. It's helped people trust what we're doing more. It's helped people feel like they can express themselves more. It helps people feel more connected to what we're doing. And I feel like it's helped me connect better with our members and our clients, and hear what it is that they're looking for and help them get better results, especially in an industry that's really vulnerable and emotional. I think it's made us more successful.
I think that's so amazing that you actually took a full year to dedicate to being more in your feminine. And that's how long, and maybe it's been even longer than that now, that it's taken to actually recalibrate and rebalance that out. So for someone who finds themselves in their masculine for whatever reason, whether it's with work because they want to be successful, or whether it's in their relationship, where would be somewhere that you would recommend to start? Like what would allow them to start to see the benefits of being in their feminine?
Yeah. It's one of those things that you kind of have to like take a little bit of a leap of faith, but think about how many moments of your life where you kind of have to take a leap of faith, like marriage, or falling in love, or even starting your business. Like you kind of have to take this leap of faith, like it's all going to work out, and I'm doing this because it's going to benefit me. And I would definitely like, for anyone listening, that I have not lost my masculine. It's still there. We're still growing. I'm still getting shit done. Like that hasn't gone anywhere. But the question was, where do they start?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anything that really to you feels like you can access the energies that are within like the feminine category. And I don't know if you talk about this, but like feminine does not mean female and masculine does not mean male. But when I think of feminine energy, I think of like being and patience and intuition and creativity and play and more. There is like a dark side to the feminine as well, which can be like flaky and like unregulated. There's definitely like a shadow aspect to that as well. But anything that can help you access like your creativity, your nurturing, your patience, your being, like whatever that is for you. For me, it was dancing, cooking, meditation, reading fiction novels was really helpful for me. Just like anything that was, I was like a nonfiction junkie in terms of podcasts or books. Like reading fiction really helps for me. Spending time in nature, that really helps for me. And then I think one of the biggest things that I did was I spent more time around women who are very feminine. So you kind of like become more like the people that you're around. If I listed out my friends to you, like my closest friends here in Austin, I mean, including you, I think I was like really attracted to you right when I met you because you're so feminine. And I was like, oh, I want to be more like her. So I spend a lot of time with some very feminine women, and they're so feminine. Like I could spend the rest of my life trying to be as feminine as them, and I probably couldn't. But just surrounding myself with women who have more of that, I just naturally become more that way.
Yeah, the environments that you surround yourself by are so important, and you start to pick up on certain habits and thoughts and ways of being. So, how have you brought more sisterhood into your life and more women into your life? Because that's something that's newer for you, right?
Yeah. It's been hard. It's hard. Um, I before embarking like on this, I guess you could call it an adventure.
Mhm.
I thought I had convinced myself like I wasn't good at making friends, and I had convinced myself that I connect with men better than I connect with women. And where I was just like afraid of women, or I didn't know what to say, or I was feeling anxious around them. I didn't know how to connect with them. To start, my husband made a bet with me that I needed, or like a dare, I guess, that I needed to go on one girl date a week with a stranger. And that meant like just meeting up for coffee or going to get a workout together. And that definitely like pushed me outside of my comfort zone. So that for sure helped. I also spent a lot of time one on one with my husband's friends, girlfriends, and wives. That really helped as well. And then I just really like, I put it out there. Like, you talk a lot about manifestation. I just kept talking about it. Like, I want to be more feminine. I want to have more sisterhood in my life. I want to have more female friends. I talked about it on a couple podcasts, and some people listened and then reached out to me and asked to hang out, or reached out to me and said, I have someone who'd be perfect for you to hang out with. And then I just took advantage of those opportunities. But one thing I noticed that I think that like an obstacle that other people might encounter is I had this belief like, if I don't automatically connect with somebody, then they're not right for me in my life. Like, if we don't, the first time we meet each other, if we don't like, when you immediately click with somebody, like I feel like you and I like immediately clicked. And that was like an easy relationship to create, easy friendship to create. I have a lot of people who are my closest friends now that it took us hanging out like 6 or 7 times before like it really, like we really got to know each other. We really connected. I think my husband Michael told me one day, he's like, some people the first time you meet them, like they're anxious or they're nervous and they have some guards up, or they don't show you like who they really are, and you need to actually collect more data to get to know somebody or to connect with them and give them a chance before you just like, oh, we didn't connect the first time, so like write those people off. So I had made a commitment in my head that I would hang out with somebody 6 or 7 times before I'd be like, I don't think they're the right fit for me. So that's like a lot of investment of time. I was like very committed to this mission of being more feminine and having more female friends. And I trusted the people in my life that told me that it was a good thing. And if you're listening to this and you trust Amy, or you resonate with me and you trust me, like just trust that this could be a good thing for you.
I love that you actually use the masculine of being super committed and dedicated in order to create more feminine in your life. It's using your strengths, it's using what works well for you to create something new. And even how Michael invited you into this opportunity by kind of like a dare, that
Yeah, like a
that
challenge,
a
which is a
challenge.
masculine, which calls
Yeah.
out masculine for sure.
Yeah. And I think that really speaks to where we're at in our culture. We like things to be quick and easy. And if it's not easy in the first time, then we have so many options, just be like, okay, next. And I've never really been part of the swipe culture with dating. I never really was on dating apps. I can see it very similarly when you're making friends with other female friends or meeting other female friends, of not giving up after the first quote unquote date, right? Or first time you're meeting them, and really getting to know someone and getting to know their heart. And vulnerability doesn't come easy to everyone. And that's often where the connection happens between women, is when women can open up because they feel safe, because they trust each other. And that's where you start to get that heart to heart connection of, oh, I really get this woman. I get her heart. I get what she's about. And that doesn't always happen on the first time. Maybe they're intimidated on the first time. Maybe they're nervous, like you said. Maybe their own self-doubt is getting in the way of, oh, did I say this right? And it might not even be about you. Most of the time it's not about you, right?
Yeah. They
And
could
there's
be
a
having a bad day.
yeah. And
That's
there's a difference intuitively if you intuitively got a sense that this would be like a toxic relationship, or that it was super negative, or it was bringing you down, versus just not clicking on the first time that you hung out.
Yeah, exactly. That's a really good distinction to make. Yeah. I'm not talking about like somebody who you meet and you're like, whoa, like we just don't align at all and you're doing things I would never do. Like it's more of, I just don't feel like you're my best friend after the first time we meet, which I think in retrospect, it's ridiculous that I was like, I'm only going to be friends with people who I'm immediately best friends
Well,
with.
that's comfort zone. It's like, I don't want to risk feeling rejected, or I don't want to risk this not working out. And those types of fear, it feels like it's almost like a fear. It would be challenging instead of easy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So how do you feel like your feminine energy? I know that Michael has really invited you into being more in your feminine. And I really want to point out, because he's so masculine, he was able to, his masculinity being so far on the spectrum of in the masculine range, he's a perfect balance for you, because he, in order for you to be able to get into your feminine, you kind of needed someone who was more masculine than you to be able to invite you into that, to allow you to soften into your feminine. So in what ways do you feel like in relationship with Michael, that how does it affect your polarity, your chemistry, when you're more in your feminine?
Yeah, it has really, really reduced the amount of, or I don't know if it's reduced the amount of conflicts we get into. It's, which I don't think conflict is a bad thing. I ascribe to the belief of like conflict is actually a good thing. It's like expressing your boundaries or learning something new about somebody. It's more about like the way that you move through conflict. And it's really allowed us to move through conflict like in a beautiful way, and it happens quickly and we learn about each other. And um, it's less of this like two masculines fighting against each other and more of, I like we both are a balance. Like even when this all started, he is a recovered addict. He spent 8 years in rehab. He's done family therapy and he continues to do all of these very feminine things of meditation and stillness and being and patience and nurturing. And he has so many of those qualities, even though he's very, very masculine. So he really modeled for me what was possible in having both of them, and allowed me to, like you said, like he invited me to be more feminine because he wanted to step up and be the masculine in the relationship, like take charge and stability and structure. And even though I contribute a lot to that, I like let him lead in that way. And then it allowed me to lead in the more feminine aspects of our family, like in the energy of our family, or sometimes like the more creative, like where are we going to live and what feels good to us, or when is the right time to start a family, like that type of feeling. And it's really helped us like move through goals and vision of our relationship in a way that's much more like aligned, and we feel more connected. I mean, our sex life has dramatically improved for sure. It's just, yeah, it's like it's sexy when he's in his core energy and I'm allowed to like soften and be in what is my core energy versus feeling like a little bit of a struggle like it was before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, having those two opposing energies, like you said, it doesn't just affect chemistry in the bedroom and sexually, but it actually impacts the way that your energies interact with each other in decision making. And Michael works in your business as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
what's that like?
that's like a whole other podcast within itself of people are like, what? You guys work together? And like technically, if you want to be like really like technical about it, I would be his boss. So that's like a whole other thing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing how both of you have done the inner work and continue to do the inner work, and are, through doing the inner work together, creating this harmony and balance. And I would imagine that as one person grows, the other person, how would you say like the speed of growth in your partnership? Is there any a time where you feel like one of you have grown faster than the other, and has that created any tension?
There's definitely times one of us is growing faster than the other. Um, I think that when it causes tension, it's it's like like, for example, in our current state right now, Michael is growing in business faster and more than I am. I am growing in like taking care of our household and taking care of our family and like thinking about the more of the culture of our company versus like tactical, strategic, financial decisions and goals and things like that. Like I'm really focused on like the intimacy of the company or how we're connecting with one another. And it feels sometimes like he's growing faster than me. And I have to like reorient myself that it's just different. But when I do feel tension, it is often because I'm like the masculine part of me is like, no, I'm losing. Like the competitive piece of me starts stepping in, and I just have to notice it and remember that I'm growing in all these ways that are just different. We're definitely, or like sometimes it's good if it creates tension. If I'm just like being lazy and I'm just being lazy and I'm not taking care of myself or I'm not growing and he is, it kind of like makes me step up my game. It's like, no, you're not going to like get this huge leg up on me. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it creates a little bit of tension, but never in a bad way. And we have this practice of instead of, so a lot of times aggression or conflict comes from either like shame, jealousy, or envy. And like it's just expressing itself as aggression towards somebody else. But if you really, really like were able to take a deep look at why you're actually being aggressive towards somebody, it's either coming from envy, jealousy, or shame to some degree. And we do a good job of like calling out what it is. So instead of me like acting aggressively, I'll be like, I'm really envious right now about how amazing you're doing in business and all of the progress. So one, I can like, just acknowledge my own feelings and honor my own feelings. And then also give him this little like boost of, he's like, yeah, like it's kind of feels good to him that I feel
Mm-hmm.
that way. And then we kind of like honor it with each other. And then it opens up conversation of, do you want to change that? Or is there something that you want to do differently?
Yeah, it's super powerful how you guys have navigated your relationship and grown together and inspire each other to grow. And you guys have a podcast together. So I'd love for you to share with the listeners where they can find out more and learn. You talk about relationship, business, nutrition, all of the things.
Yeah, we have a podcast called the WAG Podcast. It's just really short, under 30-minute conversations. Some of them are like 15 or 20 minutes. And it's just Michael and I having conversations about all sorts of topics that are in personal development, wellness, intimacy, relationships. We cover like that sphere of things and our perspective on it. It's really fun.
Amazing. So for everyone who's listening, you can head over to the WAG podcast. We'll link that in the show notes. And Adee, where else can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at Working Against Gravity would be our company's Instagram for all things nutrition and mindset related to nutrition and fitness. And then I am Adee Cazayoux on Instagram. And the spelling of my name will for sure be in the
In
title notes
the
or somewhere. It's complicated.
we'll put in the show notes. We're not expecting you guys to memorize that. And Adee, I think you have a gift for our listeners if they want to learn more about your nutrition guide. Where can they find that?
Yeah. So if you go to workingagainstgravity.com/nutrition guide, I believe it is. Or if you just Google nutrition guide working against gravity, it will come up. And it is just a free download that you can have that goes over our philosophy of nutrition. And it gives you a lot of tips and strategies for how to just start learning about your own nutrition. How are you acting towards food? Develop a little bit more of a positive relationship towards food, and just gives you a couple little starting points to go from there.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being so generous with your gifts. And I have one last question for you.
Okay.
How can we support you, or how can my community support you right now in your life, in your business?
Yeah. So I like the best way to support me is to continue to develop your own self-awareness and to just be the most authentic version of yourself. That is like the most support I could ever ask for. And to, if anything I said helps you do that, share and let me know which part of it helped you. And the little praise pieces, or like just hearing how you've actually implemented anything I've shared into your life, that is support for me that goes on forever.
Well, thank you so much for being such a great example and sharing all of your wisdom with us today. And thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me anytime.